Hello, listeners. This is episode 49 of our talk, and I'm super excited to introduce you to my guest, Shirley Ann O'Neill. So let me introduce Shirley. She is the director and co-founder of the Visual Art Open, an international art prize for emerging artists. In 2020, she co-founded the Visual Artists Association, VAA, a platform for professional artists, and heads up their mentorship program. She is known for experience in artist development, with a focus in communicating the narrative of art to global audiences. Formerly, she worked on curatorial projects and national exhibition programs, which were supported by the Tate National Museums, BBC, and the New York Times International. Shirley Ann has over 20 years experience of working with visual artists. She wrote the book Good Art Doesn't Sell Itself, the artist's definitive guide to visibility and opportunities. And I have to say, it's a brilliant book. I will put the link in the show notes because it's an absolute must read. Welcome, Shirley Ann. Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Thank you for such a warm introduction. I'm delighted to be here.
Could you briefly tell us a bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I come from a family of self-employed people, and I fell into arts marketing fairly young, at the age of 16, believe it or not. And I've since then gone from strength to strength. I've done the academic route, I've done the corporate route, but I've got a passion for helping artists communicate their stories and who they are and what they're about. And more importantly, or equally as important, is to earn a livelihood from their creativity.
That's brilliant. Yeah. You have an MA in marketing. Yeah, you already said. So what specifically was it that made you specialize in the art market? Because marketing and the art market, most artists have like,
Exactly.
geez.
Well, I had that impression as well. Basically, I worked for my aunt when I was 16, and she set up a studio. I was a Saturday girl, and she was new to business. She didn't know anything about business, but she worked in textiles. And to cut a long story short, I saw the pain she went through of setting her business up, and I helped her turn that business around. And I was so proud the day when we actually started getting people into the studio and she was making money. And the feeling of having a customer or a person who was emotionally moved by what she did, so one happy person, and her being able to pay her bills, it was a brilliant feeling. I thought, wow, this is easy for me, and it all goes back to the book that I've written about visibility. And this was the day pre-internet, and it was just about, I don't know, changing people's perception of what marketing is, because marketing sounds a little bit like silver snake skin oil. What people don't realize is marketing is communication. All it is about really get communication with people who are interested in your art or would be potentially. So then after that, I thought, right, I need to get some business skills. Went off to university. I actually set up my first business at university whilst doing a business degree. So I know firsthand how painful it is. And then I went into the corporate world and I did a variety of jobs. And the reason why I picked marketing was because it was the least boring out of all the other business subjects. I'm not going to lie.
Wow, that is really, yeah.
Honest, absolutely. And then what happened was I was working with artists in the business world, and I realized it's really hard to find artists for these projects. I didn't want to go to agencies, although I often did. And if you think about it, there are, artists are needed for everything. If I'm creating a magazine, I need your artwork, I need to license it. There was one particular project where I was working in a new business and we needed to do a big sculptural piece in the reception. and trying to find artists, and the agency wasn't doing a good job, and I had to keep my MD happy. So I realized there was a problem in the art world, as in there are brilliant artists, but they don't always connect with the end customers, and that the power of the agencies isn't great. So that's how I realized there was a need for education and opportunities for artists, and that is what I'm about. And then, fortunately, I was introduced to Laura O'Hare, and I did very well in the corporate world, but I was there just to learn the business skills. It wasn't feeding my soul, although I was very fortunate to get a good income from it. And then I've moved on and progressed and actually gone fully into the art world.
Wow. It must be a challenge. And to me, it sounds very interesting to say, out of business, marketing is the least boring. And if you say that to an artist, to say, "Oh my God."
It's so true. I mean, but I think it's about changing your perception of
Yeah,
marketing. I mean, when
yeah.
I did my first degree, I just did business, and I thought marketing, if I'm being honest, I thought it was fluffy. I thought there was no credibility to it. And then when I graduated, I thought, what do I really love? I love communication, and my perception changed. And that's when I did my master's. I got chartered very quickly. And I started to work in different industries, travel industry and education industry, and industries that I have an interest in. But all the way through over the last 25 years, I've always worked with artists. And the
Mhm.
last 10 years, I've thought, right, how do I serve artists? Because I know I can make their life easier. And it goes back to that spark when I was 16 years old of making a difference.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that relative actually passed away last year. And I am so thankful to her because she set me off on a journey just because I was trying to solve her problem. And it's I think it's good for the soul, art. I think it's needed everywhere. And
Yeah,
the other point I would say is it's really important to understand that regardless of whether you're an artist or any other profession, doctor, solicitor, we all have a personal brand. It's what people think about us when we're not in the room. So in some ways, communication is needed for any job that you choose, and it's
yeah.
quite interesting. So that's why I kind of fell in love with marketing, although I was a resistant person to it.
But I love it that you fell in love with marketing, but also that for you, it was the artist that needed the help, because so many artists have no clue. Some are good at it. It's natural to them, but they are natural communicators. So it's easier. But you have people who are not natural communicators, and they struggle and they fight. And there are so many things that I read in your book, because I came and I became a member, I think in January. I had like, okay, I go for the premium membership. Bang, this is it. I want to know. I read this book. I found it in the book. And I had like, okay, if book gives me this, then this membership must be awesome. I've downloaded all your guides, worked through them, because this is so much information. And, I've done some courses. I have done making art, making money. I've done artist in business, all these marketing courses. Yeah, you pick bits and bobs out of it, but it doesn't break through that wall of, here you are as an artist, you have your why story. It's all good and well. You post frequently, you go onto the internet, you show yourself, but then you have this brick wall, and the V&A breaks through that, because you all have experience in the art world on the other
Absolutely.
side of the wall.
It's we started off by doing art fairs and art exhibitions and art collectors clubs, and we realized that artists can get stuck in a matrix. This is what I call it. You just need to make sure that your community and your development go hand in hand, because it can be a very lonely experience. It's a cottage industry,
Yeah,
and in that sense, it's sometimes hard to make the next step or to find different income streams. having said that, we've worked with lots and lots of successful artists. So I think when you give people the proof of this is how it's done, this is how they've done it, it then opens up a whole world of possibility.
Yeah.
And people can then realize, okay, I can do this, and it's about sharing those ideas and knowledge. I think that's really, really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. You opened a candy store for me.
Oh, good.
There
I'm
were
so
so many, there were just so many things that I wasn't aware of. How do I license? Do I even license? Publishing houses for art? I had no clue.
no.
PR, yeah, I know about PR, but that costs you a truckload of money. But there's other ways you can do PR. Museum. I have done my research for the museum in Amsterdam of modern art, and they get thousands of email every day and say, sorry, no, we don't even have money. And then for people, it breaks off. Galleries. I was told galleries is a no-go area.
There's
Things
lots
like
of
that.
myths. There is so many myths out there. It's so true.
Wow, it's and you come with, yeah, you can do, but you
Absolutely.
make a very distinct shift between the vintage ones that only want your money for a very small part of the wall, don't do anything to sell your art, and those who are really interested. But what do you need to do as artists to even communicate with them and to go there? And the way that you said that you write about, okay, but listen, connect with them,
It takes time
invite
to build these
them.
relationships. It does. Do you know, one of the things that I found, and I've read so many art books out there, and I've attended lots of resources, is there wasn't one definitive book that said, right, here is how you navigate the art world. Now, if you really want your work to be seen in museums and public galleries, that is a possibility. And I know because I'm seeing artists doing it, and you don't necessarily need to be super experienced. A lot of artists, and you gave that as an example, a lot of galleries and museums, they do have engagement programs, but it's understanding when they run and how to apply. And everything's possible. It's just understanding how it works.
How, yeah.
And catching time is so important. It
Yeah.
really is. And I feel for artists, because I think in terms of keeping your motivation and your focus, it can be hard if you've had a series of no's, and it's kind of keep your eye on the prize and going for some low-hanging fruit and saying, right, this is where my art is today. Where do I want to be, and how am I going to get there? So there is a process to it, and I know some of the resistance I've had is people say there's no individual success path. Actually, there is a visibility path, and people do follow it. Obviously, it's personal to the individual artist, because we've all got different skills, different amount of time free, different financial backgrounds, but there is a path, and there are set steps that you can follow.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about it, your brilliant book. Good art doesn't sell. I love that. I think that was the title. I had like, I have good art. I believe in my art. So that book is for me. But my question was more, what is good art to you?
Good art for me, I mean, I've got all different types of art. I've got investment art. So, if I look at my collection, I'm quite good at spotting, when something's going to go up in price. So, anything from Sir Peter Blake, Sir Anthony Gormley. And I've also got art where I've just got an emotional connection. And I tend to buy 2 or 3 pieces a year.
Mhm.
Um, I think with I don't tend to look at the background of the artist unless I'm looking for an incremental increase in revenue. I think I fall into the other categories where I know a little bit about art, but I buy art because it brings me joy. And I'm an impulse buyer. So if I go to an art fair, I'll think, oh, and what I tend to do with art is I will recycle it, as in I will take them out in seasons in my home. So I know that winter season, this art looks good, and summer season, and it's all under the bed upstairs in storage. Good art is when there's integrity and authenticity of the artist.
Yeah.
They're the two crucial things.
Yeah.
If the artist acts with agency and confidence, and they don't have to be loud, they can be an introvert, but if they have got, I don't know, they believe in their artwork, that makes me believe in their artwork. Also helps if they can story tell a little bit. They can tell me why they created it, what inspired them. I buy art for all different reasons, and I'm no different to any other consumer in that regard. And sometimes, you know, you meet someone, they've got a nice energy. There's times when I've been to art fairs, because my background previously was in art fairs, but I now go just purely for the joy of it. If an artist is really, really super, super down, the negative energy in that area when they're in a fair can make you want to run for the hills, because do you know what I'm saying? So you may try to chat for a few minutes and cheer them up. But yeah, keeping your energy is really important, and understanding just basics of why you're creating it, and storytelling is super important.
Yeah, exactly. I love
And
that.
also,
That's why I paint portraits as a story. I always tell stories. Yeah, I
absolutely,
love it.
it's the
Yeah.
emotional connection. That's why
Yeah.
people buy art.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they can go to some place where they don't know nothing about it, you know, and get art through decorative art, you know. So both, listen, I don't make a distinction between high-end, high culture and low culture. I think all art has its place in the world.
I absolutely agree. And I also think that art is a very, very powerful object, I would say, in people's lives, a necessity in our lives.
Absolutely.
And
You know,
so, yeah.
that was taught to me quite early from my aunt and also my family. Creativity is needed. It's food for the soul. And
Yeah.
there was a study actually, I don't know if you've read the book Ikiaki. There was a study done of all the oldest people who live in the world, centurions, and they're in pockets around the globe. And one of the things that they do is that they are creative, not necessarily to sell or with an end purpose, but they embrace that creativity. And we need art. I mean, if you look at the pandemic, it got us through the pandemic, didn't it? Our mental
Yeah.
health was
Yeah.
huge.
It's huge. Yeah. So, is it true that marketing is the one thing that artists really need to master?
Unfortunately, no. You need to you need to learn all the principles of business, but marketing is probably, well, it is the most important element of business, because without marketing, you're not going to get sales. You're not going to access
Exactly.
opportunities.
Yeah.
So it is, but it's not the only one. You also need to make sure you can, you know, your margins add up, and you know, you can create an income from it, access different streams of income. But probably I am biased because I've worked in lots of different organizations. Without marketing, your company will not be seen. So, you know,
No.
you could be the best painter in the world in terms of quality, going back to your question on quality. You know, you can sit in your studio all day and create the most incredible pieces and paint for 40, 50 years, but if no one gets to see them,
Exactly. Yeah.
and that might not be your goal, but you're not going to be, you know, you're not going to get sales or the recognition that perhaps you ought to deserve.
Yeah, it's reading the book, Good Art Doesn't Sell Itself. I had like, yeah, Karen, you are the one who needs to sell it. So one morning I woke up and I had like, okay, today I'm going to make sure I will be the queen of marketing. It's not my most powerful thing, but I can learn it.
Absolutely. And I think if you change your mindset, one trick I would say is, I'm an introvert, you know, I'm a confident introvert, but I'm an introvert. I don't like getting myself as an individual out there. I'm one of these people who silently likes to let the results speak for themselves.
Mhm.
That doesn't work in the real world. Or it does, but it's a slower way to work. So
Yeah.
as an artist, what I would say is just be authentic and don't see it as selling yourself. See it as you're just communicating your work and what you're about. And if you stick to your values, you can't go wrong. There was a piece of advice that really resonated with me that Matthew Burrows gave us on a talk. I asked him, how do artists get over the fear of social media, because it feels a bit fake, posting and being a content creator. If that's particularly for people, artists who are over the age of 40, it's a whole different way of living, and anyway, he said, just get up, post consistently, and do not worry about the results. You can archive afterwards, but that is the only way you're going to find your voice online. So yeah, it's a challenge that everyone has, I guess, but it is something that can be worked on. And I think if you change it to I'm just communicating about my art, it doesn't feel as scary as marketing, does it? Or not as contrived, I guess.
It doesn't feel so sleazy, because that's the feeling you have. And well, as well as I do, that we have the Johannes Vermeer exhibition in the Netherlands, and I happen to come from the Netherlands, in my beloved Rijksmuseum. But I had like, wow, they had a brilliant marketing behind it. They also were able to get the right scarcity so that it's already sold out. But in March, they will look if they can find more places. They're like, whoa, this is so clever, really cleverly done. Everything, the whole world is buzzing about this exhibition. And I had like, that is an art in itself.
Absolutely.
If you can do that.
Yeah. And also, you're not going to learn that overnight. It
No,
takes time.
no.
I think sometimes we're too hard on ourselves. But knowing your value, knowing your worth, I think one of the other tips I would give from a marketing point of view, and I know I've discussed this in recent weeks, is artists that do well tend to do their marketing early. So they create the interest, intrigue, and then they make things available for a certain time, whether it's an exhibition, and that creates that scarcity. And there's a number of ways you can create scarcity. But it's, there's a fine line between garnering support off people, because people do want to support you and your tribe, and saying, please buy my work, I'm a desperate artist. There's a balance between the two. So I think if your goals are genuine and you are just communicating your art, people will want to support you.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings me to vibration and energy, the spiritual connection, because art has that, whether we like it or not. That's why paintings, hand painted artworks will always be there, because has a very high vibration, and it comes straight from the artist on the canvas. But there's something else. So the spiritual connection, and something, what's his name? Bob Proctor talked about a lot, and that is the law of cause and effect. And how does this come back in marketing?
I see this all the time. Those artists that have, or they learn the art of faith and developing self-belief, which is very hard to create certainty. You've got bills to pay, and it's the law of attraction, in my opinion, does exist, but what I tend to change it to is the law of action. I've worked with some wonderful artists who have been very early career, but they've kept the faith, and they were so focused, and they are focused. They keep taking action. They keep looking at what's working, what's not. They've got their intuition. They have that. They develop or cultivate a sense of certainty, if you like. And they're then, the key to it is surrendering, letting go of the outcome and understanding. And I'm a really firm believer in, if one door closes, and although it's temporal, that's because I'm being guided and taken in a different direction. I am woo-woo, and I'm probably the most least woo-woo person that you believe that I would, because I do have a corporate background. But what I found is most people who have achieved something in life, and then when I speak to my peers who've done really well, they are actually secretly a little bit woo-woo as well.
Well, I don't lie about that. I'm very woo-woo. I visualize, I meditate. I know the cause of effect. If I bring out kindness, then I receive it back. So what you give out comes back to you. And that is something that I really learned. If I resist marketing, that what I bring out will be resisted, because that energy is behind it. And I had like, okay, you're going to shift that. Just make that shift. It doesn't suit you. There is something like what people think competition or comparisonitis. Okay, it's not going so well at the moment. I haven't reached yet what I want to reach, and I see all these artists do it, and you see all these nowadays courses. Reach your 10K, reach your 6 figures. Come with me, and I don't do, costs a lot of money, and you give the same in the VAA, which costs a way less, and it's much more fun.
I think that's been one of our missions. I'm so passionate about helping people learn a livelihood from their work without having to spend an extortionate amount of money.
Yeah.
We are subsidized. We have managed to go and get, people in the corporate world to help us. That's why it doesn't cost the earth. I agree with you 100%. It's got to be fun. It's got to be manageable. And this is a process. It's a journey. You're not going to suddenly do a 1-week course and then, you may do, but, those examples of people that, earning 100K, after doing a 1-week course are very few and far between, because you have to learn the steps of building your practice and business.
Exactly. And that's where my woo comes in. That's where I'm here in the now, and I hold the gap. That's where I want to be, and I'm here now. But that happened by reading the book and having those nuggets that I need to do, and finding exactly where am I? Be grateful where you are. I'm grateful for my gift of being able to paint. I can help people. That's my serve. That's what we do as artists. But then, you still have this whole idea of don't go online to compare yourself with other artists. Stay true to yourself and keep going and do what you need to do.
Absolutely. I couldn't say it better. The only time I would go online to look at artists is if they're going to give me some tips. As in, oh, that's interesting, or they've exhibited there. But the comparison, if it's going to be used as a stick to beat yourself with, don't do it.
No, it brings your energy low down. Yeah. So, okay, art history taught me, and I heard it before, and I don't know if that's specifically American, because those courses were American. You paint a type of art, and I mentioned Philip Guston, who was an abstract expressionist, and suddenly he was just fed up with the nonsense, he said, so he started his figurative paintings. And then he lost everything. He lost his friends, he lost his best friend, a composer, and he got a lot of stick because he changed and they couldn't recognize him anymore. To what extent do we as artists need to stick to what we do?
I think learning to have a creative voice and changing your style, that's part of being an artist. And trying different mediums, that's just part of your journey that you're going on. Now, I think if you're emerging young and early and you have a big following, and then all of a sudden you change lanes, that's when you have problems. Where and I've seen this happening to quite a few artists on Instagram. They did one genre of art. One particular artist had over 200,000 followers. She changed, and then she saw a massive drop in her following and who was buying her work. Now, if perhaps, she'd have emerged slowly. She would have been better equipped to deal with it, and
Yeah.
people who engage
Yeah.
with her as an individual would have embraced her. If you look at the works of other artists, they've changed their artwork massively over the years. So I think there's a balance between being true to yourself, and also it depends on where you want your income stream to come from. As an artist, you need to always be true to yourself.
Yeah.
But if you want to sell in galleries, publishers, to the public, they need to also know that there's some integrity and also the trajectory of your work.
Yeah.
So I think an artist can do everything, but in terms of marketing, it's easier to sell one genre or niche than it is to focus on 4 or 5. You know, you're focusing on a smaller target market. From a creative point of view, keep trying those different mediums, keep exploring, keep developing. But perhaps what you show at one particular point might be just one niche.
Yeah. That's good advice. Thank
Yeah.
you. And what advice would you give artists who are struggling at the moment?
It depends what they're struggling with. If it's creativity or money, they're two different scenarios. So there's not one size fits all. What I would say is it's really important to be part of a community with peers who understand what you're going through. And then secondly, what I would do is make sure that you're looking after your well-being. Getting your basics right. You know, we were going back to before about, you know, whether it's meditation, you know, your food, your sleep, your wellness. 85% of how we feel generally in life is by making sure that that we look after those basics. And that was a psychologist, Dr. Stutz. I read his book recently and I've been following his work. It's really, really phenomenal stuff. If you're struggling in your art practice, the other thing you can do is maybe book a session with one of your colleagues or, you know, within your community, and actually do what I call mind the gap analysis. So spot where the gaps are that you need to fill, because quite often if an artist is here and they want to get to there, they may have done a few points here, but then they've got things missing. There are always solutions. You know, remember that you're not alone. You know, it's like judging your cake half baked. You know, you're not lost. You're just early in the process, or you've got a few gaps to fill.
Exactly.
And find people who've treaded those steps before you. There are so many people around us who've felt like you have. And also finally remember that there are seasons for everything in life. After winter comes spring, summer, good times will come back. It's not permanent.
That's lovely and very encouraging for a lot. Yeah, even for me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom about art and art market and how we can track the steps, step by step. Yeah. Where can people find you and the VAA, etc.? I will put links in the show notes anyway.
Yeah, if you put links in the show notes, we are online at www.visual-artists.org. We also do a monthly free art cafe. So even if you know you can't afford a membership, come along. We give lots of free resources away. And we've got some great events coming up, and we've got a free community on Facebook as well as our members only community. So we're here to build a community of some supportive artists, you know, professional artists, and work together with each other.
Great. And you're based in the UK, but you're international.
Oh, absolutely. We've got I'm so it's wonderful when we do our events, because you just see everyone popping up from all 4 corners of the earth, of the globe. And one of the exciting things that we're looking at is doing some virtual networking across the globe. So it's going to be fun. So yeah, lots coming up.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed chatting. Thank you.
Thank you.